Philippines is one of the countries that has a democratic government wherein has freedom of speech and freedom to get involved. Democracy is a government ruled by the people. Rodrigo Duterte, the new president, has been a leader of the opposition and a strong supporter of the government. His main goal is to use elections to bring about reform in the country and make it more democratic. He's made a lot of promises and he kept them all. He has promised to improve the country economy, education system, and employment opportunities for all Filipinos. In order to accelerate economic growth, he has also vowed to raise corporate taxes and invest in infrastructure projects. He also submitted measures to make the Philippines more democratic. He has also proposed to raise taxes on imports from foreign countries, and he has also proposed to reduce the amount of taxes made Filipino citizens in order to help in the development of our economy. Democratic practices in the Philippines, free election. In democratic system, people vote because they determine what is best for their country. It is important that everyone understand that voting is about more than just electing representatives or leaders. It is also about ensuring that you have a voice in government to make sure that all needs of the people in society to be heard and resolved. Majority rules. Democratic governments use the majority rule to make decisions on behalf of their people. A majority vote is used to determine if a government should be in power or not. Majoritarian democracy, as opposed to constitutional democracy, refers to a democracy in which voters and elected representatives govern by a majority vote. Minority rules. Minority rights are rights that are given to all people, regardless of whether or not they are member of the majority. A majority vote cannot be used to abolish these protections. Minorities must believe that when making decisions that affect everyone, the majority will consider their needs. Minority rights serve to bring all members of society to a balanced enjoyment of their human rights. Constitutional government. Constitutional government is defined by the existence of a constitution, which may be a legal instrument or merely a set of fixed norms or principles generally accepted as the fundamental law of the polity that effectively control the exercise of political power. This framework is intended to assist interested persons in various nations in establishing or improving curricular programs which foster an understanding and support for constitutional democracy. If there's a current democratic practices here in Philippines, I will tackle also the undemocratic practices in the Philippines. The first one is gender
Are
biases.
you a victim of gender biases? Can you give us your experience? When I'm walking, some of the boys or some men look at me when I'm wearing skirt or just revealing clothes. They just look at me. It's like look or those look that doesn't respect you. But when boys are topless, they just don't say a word, and that's not fair.
Utang-utang gani kami. Wala gid laing makao ba? Makautang ta na pusahay dili pa utang po ng tindahan, marlabi ra kayo nga daghan pag lista niya wala pa kakakuan ba? Wa kakabayad ana.
Poverty is one of the undemocratic practices in the Philippines, which has been a problem for the country for a long time. Poverty is a serious problem in the Philippines because it affects everyone.
There is still no answer, and our country continues to suffer from poverty as a result of poor governance and a lack of education. Poverty is such a significant problem in our country because we lack a functioning government. There are many problems with the government, which include corruption, lack of communication between government and people that are causing poverty in the
Political
Philippines.
marginalization affect
Political
Philippine democracy.
marginalization affect Philippine
Democracy is more likely to
Democracy
develop
is
when
more
all segments of
likely
society
to
are free to
develop
participate
and
and
endure when
influence
all
political
segments
outcomes without
of
suffering bias or
society are
reprisal.
free to
But many new
participate
and emerging
and influence
democracies,
political
large portions
outcomes
of the population
without
are
suffering
excluded from
bias or
politics based on
reprisal.
their ethnicity,
But in
religion,
many new
age,
and
disability,
emerging
gender, or
democracies,
sexual orientation.
large portions
Political
of the
marginalization disables
population
opportunity
are
of the group
excluded
and
from
some individuals of
politics
society
based on
who
their
has contrasting beliefs to the
ethnicity,
beliefs of the majority
religion,
of society,
age,
such as sexual orientation,
disability,
religion, and
gender,
people with
or
disabilities.
sexual
Usually these
orientation.
people are the powerless youth, people with disabilities, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, or the LGBT communities, and ethnic groups who are facing bias and discrimination, which leads to social and political marginalization. So the poor has insufficient rights in participating in a political agenda, for they are known to be insignificant portion in the society. The poor has limited knowledge about politics because they are known to be unschooled, untaught, and uneducated. And for whatever these people are fighting, such as their rights and well-being, the society will consider their manipulations useless. The LGBT community also has less opportunity in political activities. The society contradicts the sexual preference of the LGBT community, which leads to the discrimination of the society against their community. And for the society, the majority of the society does not approve of the same-sex marriage that the LGBT community is fighting for. And the society does not agree with their ideology. Their voices of their political regards continues to remain fruitless. And ethnic groups are the minority, for they are the only group of people who continues to nurture their ancient culture. However, in today's society, majority of the people follows mixed culture from different countries, which makes the majority people being lost tradition. And for that reason, these ethnic groups remains voiceless in raising their rights against discrimination and for political inclusion.
Racial inequality. Indigenous people face discrimination in our countries. Legal system learning them you can be more valuable, violence and abuse indigenous humans' rights. From RA 8371, the Indigenous People's Right.
I was standing by that big tree over there. There was a gunshot, and I immediately saw Datu Victor fall to the ground. He was shot in the head, and right here in the chest. The gunshot came from that hillside over there. We were afraid that Datu Victor had died, but I picked him up and brought him inside this house. With the death of our leader, our community is calling out for justice, that his death doesn't go unnoticed.
Responding to the claim that the Kansunji Group was responsible for the incident, a parent company spokeswoman said they would not react to hearsay and malicious, unsubstantiated reports from unverified third parties. These images, taken in 2014, show private security firing on Lumads in North Mindanao. In an even more notorious incident in 2015, a Lumad village head was executed in front of his entire community. Here at a demonstration in Manila, Euphemia Kulamat tells me how witnessing the execution affected her community.
We think that these acts are intended to create a chilling effect on our struggle. But we won't stop because we know that our struggle for our right to self-determination and for our ancestral domain is a just one. We will persevere in our struggle until they respect our right to self-determination.
Experiences like Euphemia's have made many Lumads sympathetic to the communist cause. But the distinction between communist sympathizer and rebel fighter is often blurred by the authorities. Critics have accused President Duterte of concocting a red scare for political gain.
One of unforgotten culture before was the primitive games like sepak, patintero, and piko. But unfortunately, these games are forgotten now. Young people don't practice these games anymore. They will just rather play on their phones, computers, or even in their tablets. So let's interview someone if they know some of primitive games before. Alam mo ba yung mga dating laro? Hindi ko na kasi alam eh. Kahit anong laro, let's say, patintero, sepak. Bakit hindi mo alam? Sa akin tinuro ni Kuya. Hindi naturo sa'yo. Ano yan nilalaro mo?
Mobile Legends.
Yan lang yung alam mong laruin?
Hindi. Meron pa yung mga Subway Surf Princess Runner, pati yung 8-ball pool.
Puro sa cellphone games yon. Bakit ayaw mong subukan laruin yung dating laro? Yung makikipaglaro ka sa mga kaibigan mo sa labas?
May COVID eh.
Pinagbabawalan ka? Okay. Thank you. Based on what I have interviewed, she said she haven't experienced to play primitive games before with her friends because she's not allowed to due to COVID, but then these games wasn't practiced even before because of technological improvement.
Crisis of representation. In the year of 2016, Mr. Rodrigo Duterte has stuck to his guns in completing for his campaign pledge to launch a violent anti-drug campaign. Duterte's strongest support didn't come from the poorest voters, but rather from the elite and therefore the bourgeois who must feared for his or her personal security. Duterte is an illiberal populist who changed the prevailing political order into an illiberal one through a replacement law and order.
Politics of recognition. Within weeks of inauguration as President of the Philippines in June 2016, Rodrigo Duterte became the most internationally known Filipino leader. Although the attention to Duterte and his brutal drug war is warranted, much less attention has been paid to his administration, broader policy agenda, its approach to politics and governance, and its broader impact on democratic institutions and norms. As a candidate, Duterte promised that he would produce real and rapid improvements in the lives of Filipinos, particularly by aggressively addressing crime and corruption. Commonly cited flaws include elections tainted by violence and vote buying, widespread rent-seeking, and corruption, policies that have benefited elites and special interests at the expense of the poor majority, and a dysfunctional justice system here in the Philippines. As a result, the President plays a central role in determining policy outcomes, as well as the norms and behavior that shape politics and governance. Current state of democracy in the Philippines.